Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Momen really liked the video I did on my sensory motor journey outside in this background. Plus the mornings here in Colorado are honestly beautiful because there's really low humidity where we live. And I came from Florida for 10 years, so if you know much about Florida, it's really humid for about 10 months a year. So I really enjoy living in Colorado. That's actually one of the main reasons I moved here. I moved here because how much I enjoyed having no humidity and everything like that. And that was really important to me. Well, to be honest, when I moved here, I was so incredibly messed up with sensory motor OCD. I mean, the 33, it was like 27 hours of driving on the road. I was alone in my car and I was freaking out because I'd never been alone for that long with my sensory motor, and that was really tough. I ran out of peanut butter, which is not good because it's just not the same without peanut butter. Totally random. So today I want to talk about myths. I have not done a myth video in a really long time. I want to talk about what myths I tried, how they affected my recovery journey, how I changed my perception on some of these myths, applied the correct knowledge and truth to my own recovery journey, and help apply that to other people in their own recovery journey. So before I go any further, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any myths out there that you think we need to cover a little bit more. Maybe you want to see a particular video on one myth in particular, or maybe a top 3. I don't really have a list. I'm kind of just going to rattle a lot of them off in the video and break a lot of them down. So the very first myth I want to talk about is probably one of the most prevailing myths in OCD and anxiety recovery. Now, when you look at the anxiety disorder realm, right, we have obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, BDD, body dysmorphic disorder. And then those anxiety-based disorders, they're basically all based off a fear cycle that has been turned on by some biological whatever is going on. We don't need to know anything about it. All that you need to know is you're suffering right now. You have beliefs you have to work on. Changing those beliefs is key. We are very adamant about not diving into the past when it comes to OCD or any of these other anxiety-based issues because it leads you nowhere. And the only way out is actually looking at the beliefs you hold now on certain situations or fears and then changing them in the future. So the first myth I want to talk about is why exposures are no longer the gold standard for OCD recovery. For the majority of obsessive compulsive disorders existence, we thought as a community that exposures were the way out. Now, let me explain very clearly. Exposures are extremely important. They're great. They're needed in the majority of cases. If you have magical thinking OCD with a lot of ritualistic behaviors, just right OCD where you're doing things very compulsively outwardly, maybe you're washing your face 20 times in a row, they get a feeling, mixed in with that contamination OCD. Contamination OCD, there's no way around it. You need to do a fear hierarchy, outward exposures. But there's certain fears where you don't really need to do them after a while. Sensory motor, you don't need to do them at all. Well, my main journey. So breathing, blinking, swallowing, salivating, heartbeat, those are natural human functions that are going to be with you until you die. So they obviously can't be the genesis of the problem. What's going on is you're afraid of that sensation. So what you actually need to do is build your lifestyle factors and work on your beliefs. HOCD, also known as homosexual OCD, is very similar. So if you are a male and you have ROCD mixed with HOCD, and you are afraid of never feeling connected to your partner and you're absolutely convinced you're gay, you do not need to expose yourself by looking at attractive men. You will see attractive men forever. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense when you actually look at the genesis of what's going on. The fear is the fear of you never having connection, maybe never having a family, never experiencing things that your friends experience or normal people. There's no such thing as normal. Normal is a totally made up concept. And that's for everything, for belief systems, for intimate desires, for money goals, for spiritual goals. We just know that there's certain belief systems that tend to get people in more trouble from an emotional standpoint, such as those really strong irrational beliefs leading to those unhealthy emotions that we talk about: chronic anger, resentment, rage, chronic shame and guilt. It's not that you'll never feel those again, it's the chronicity of how you feel them. That's the belief system that's really playing into that. So that's number one. Exposures are no longer the gold standard. This is what you have to ask yourself. I mean, it's an irrefutable fact. If exposures were all we need, I would not need to exist. Rob would not need to exist. We would not need to make videos on the YouTube channel. We wouldn't have to have OCD recovery. We wouldn't have to do any of that stuff because we would just all do exposures and go on our way. Now, exposures are definitely important for a lot of people. They're just not the whole thing. Myth number 2. Telling someone with harm OCD and POCD, specifically harm OCD and POCD, because they are based off societal rejection, shame, and guilt, that they can just kind of reassure themselves that they would never do that. So the way that OCD operates, maybe you're new to the journey, or maybe you're trying to help someone, you're maybe in school to become a psychologist, or you want to become a coach, whatever you want to do from your personal experiences, it's important to remember that it will feel as real as it can get to the sufferer. So let me give you an example. If I had POCD currently right now with suffering, as I'm sitting in this chair will feel like it is on fire and I can't get off the chair. That's how real it feels. And the realness of the fear is what makes us do the compulsions, because the compulsions are to disarm for short-term relief, and then we stay in the cycle. So it's irrational belief, feel as real as it can get, and then in here intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, and urges. Then you do a compulsion to make yourself feel better, and it goes on and on. And then in between here as well, you have automatic rumination that's happening because you're still scared and so forth. And that will lead me into myth number 3, that you can bring down rumination 1% each day, 3% every week. Not true whatsoever. Now, the way I like to talk about it, there's a clear differentiation between analyzing. So let's say I always use the ROCD one. So if you see my videos, I talk about this. If you have ROCD, and I'm looking at my wife right now, and I'm at dinner and I'm not feeling connected, and I come home and I sit on the couch and I pull up Facebook and I'm trying to look at old pictures. Was I attracted to her there? You can actually bring that down pretty quickly. What you can't bring down pretty quickly is this. ROCD with my wife, a waitress walks by, am I more attracted to her? Oh my gosh, she looks really attractive. All that intrusive images, sensation, urges, maybe you get automatic images of you two having intimacy, maybe, and all those other things that happen with that. And then you look at your partner, they feel absolutely disconnected. They don't seem attractive at all. It's super important to realize that that's part of the entire journey. Now, say with POCD, if you're a mother with a 2-year-old child, you're holding your child, all those intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges, the groinal responses, those will pop up on automatic all the time. If you don't want them in certain places, that's when they're going to come. This is why we try and teach people that you have to be accepting of whatever comes at whatever time. It's really important to talk about that. So let's do a little recap so far. Exposures aren't enough. They're not the gold standard anymore. Breaking down beliefs are. We know this anecdotally. I forgot the second one. Oh God. Rumination. I just forgot. Anyway, so rumination, like I said, rumination is primarily automatic, and that you're not going to be able to just bring those down in the way that you imagine. So the next myth I want to talk about, which will be myth number 4, even though I'm forgetting myth number 2, blanking out right now, would be, what's a really good one? The thoughts are thoughts. So first of all, let's start with some benefits of thoughts or thoughts. A thought is a thought, correct. We know that. But the other thing that's important to cover about a thought is that it doesn't give you a framework for unconditional self-life and other acceptance. And that's the key part about it. So it's important to realize that, you know, when you have something that won't unlatch, it is super, super, super sticky. You have to get very comfortable with allowing that to be there without trying to rid yourself of it. That is a critical part of the OCD recovery process. But it's also important to realize that without a level of acceptance, POCD, harm OCD, sensory motor, some of any fear can be chronic. But those, specifically harm OCD, gay OCD, POCD, those are not going to unlatch with thoughts or thoughts. I've never seen a case, and I work with a lot of people. I think it's important to cover that because a lot of people think they could just allow it to be there. If you are deathly afraid of your worst case scenario becoming true, then you're going to really have to work at unconditional self-life, other acceptance. And that will lead me into myth number 5, that you don't have to go into the context of the thought. Now, I think there's some confusion on what we mean by this. We don't mean engage with the thoughts as they come. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is this. So let's say, what's a good example? Let's go back to the ROCD example. You're at dinner, the intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges are coming in. You don't want to engage with those as they come. You want to learn how to wear it like an uncomfortable coat, just as if I was to wear the shirt that was really uncomfortable. Now, the other important part to realize is that when you have a fear that is sticky and won't unlatch, you will need to go into the context of the thought to target it with exposure. So if anyone tells you you have to go into the context of the fear, that doesn't make a lot of sense because we need to know what exposures we need to do. And that's a critical part of the recovery process. I mean, it's if we didn't need to go into the context of the thought, then all exposures would be the same, which they're not. They have to be catered towards the individual. We also have to go into the context of the thought when we're doing our disputing homework. Remember, we dispute fears. We don't dispute thoughts. We don't dispute intrusive images, sensation, and urges as they come. We dispute the core fear that's genesis of those. So if you have a fear of fear, which we all do, the fear being stuck for the rest of your life, breaking that down, realizing it would not be fun, it wouldn't be ideal, but you could still live with it for the rest of your life while enjoying many moments. I enjoyed many moments when chronically suffering, and I got a lot of things done. I did a lot of lifestyle work, with work, with my relationship, with my dogs and hiking. I did a lot of that stuff when I was chronically suffering. So it is really important to cover that. And remember, it is super important to realize, and this kind of mixes in with agreement doesn't mean acceptance, which is another misconception I fell into. And I think a lot of people with the POCD and the harm OCD, they all think, oh, you're telling me I have to agree with my thoughts. No, that's not what we're saying at all. We're saying that you could accept yourself, your entire being, your humanity. You're a fallible human who makes mistakes, who didn't pick their brain. But if you have a behavior that you don't like, you can say that behavior is terrible. You can say the behavior is evil. But there's no such thing as a 100% total evil person, just like there's no such thing as a 100% good person. Everyone is a complex moving organism with thousands and millions of good and bad traits that are deemed good and bad by different people in different time periods and different cultures. So it's important to break all that down. I want to see if there's one more myth I can end it on that really was something that really held me back. I don't know if it's really a myth, but more something that really gets us into trouble, and that's black and white immediate changes. So I, more than likely because of my ADHD, and I know that's triggering for a lot of you to hear, I don't think about my ADHD. I'm not trying to figure anything out about that. I'm just saying it more than likely, if I can imagine. My ADHD made me very inherently bad at black and white decisions. So I'd go from 0 to 100. So what I wanted to do was learn how to break that down in the long run. Once I learned to break that down and realized that I didn't need to make immediate changes in the moment, it went a long way in my recovery process. Now, what do I mean by it went a long way in my recovery process? Whenever I felt an urge to change something, I would leave the Facebook group. I would leave all OCD groups. I saw something the other day, not OCD related, that said something like, I'm massaging my foot right now. I don't know why. That says, why you should leave all social media for good. This is a very, very, very bad mindset. Social media is not inherently bad or good. It's the way you use social media. The same thing that, it could be bad for some people. It's like anything in life. Balance and moderation is key. The reason why people don't like practicing balance and moderation is because it's difficult. It's really difficult to practice balance and moderation. So in order to get better at balance and moderation, also realizing you're not going to be able to be balanced and moderated for your entire life. You'll fall off the wagon, come back, and have to reassess and solve problems. You know, life is about solving problems. I really didn't want to solve any problems because anytime I felt uncomfortable, I'm like, oh no. So I really had to get go with that. So realizing you could sit with that discomfort is such a key part of the recovery journey. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Comment down below if there's some other myths you want us to cover. Comment down below if there's other things you want me to cover or Rob. I know me, Moment, and Mark are going to do a video. Me, Moment, and Jade are going to do a video. Me, Rob, and Moment will do a video. That's going to be such a funny one. Probably get a lot of good laughs and with all those. So, and you know, it's great. If you have any success stories, share down below. We love success stories. And yeah, and thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a great day.